Welcome to the Cold Movement Gym podcast. This week, we are talking with Dr. Steven Geanopulos. Dr. G is a renowned Board Certified Chiropractic Neurologist dedicated to holistic health. He is one of America's leading experts in lifelong optimized living. This is the second time we have had the pleasure of speaking with Dr. G on the Cold Movement Gym podcast. Over the years, numerous Cold Movement clients have personally worked with Dr. G and have seen life-changing results. This podcast episode is one you will not want to miss, as it has the potential to dramatically change your physical health. The Cold Movement Gym podcast is sponsored by Native Path Supplements, Lombardi Chiropractic, and A Dog's Day Out Doggy Daycare. Mention this podcast or use the promo code in the episode description for a nice discount on us. Dr. G, welcome to the Cold Movement Gym podcast. How you doing, buddy?
Excellent. It's great to be here again.
Oh, yeah, man. The first conversation we had, people absolutely loved. I've got a series of questions today. We're going to dive right in. There's a lot of buzz around certain topics and whatnot in the last year that I've seen here with clients and just in the news and whatnot. And I know you're the guy to maybe provide some advice. So let's dive right into the new drug Ozempic. All right. So this drug, from what I've read, is being used to assist people with blood sugar balance, weight loss. And I'm just curious, what is your opinion on the drug? There's a lot of people taking it, and there's a lot of people seeing quote unquote results, if you're defining results as weight loss. What's your opinion on that drug, Ozempic?
All right, so that's a kind of a loaded question in the sense that does the drug do something? Absolutely, yes, and that's where the results are coming from. And whenever a drug does something, of course, it also does things you may not want it to do. So it does things you want it to do in exchange for things you don't want it to do. So like any other drug, there's never been a drug that's ever been invented that doesn't fit that criteria. Matter of fact, if it doesn't have a side effect, I think Eli Lilly himself said, if it doesn't have side effects, it's not a drug, right? So that's the question. And these medications, they're called GLP-1 agonists. All that means is they're peptides that exist in your body. You actually make them in your gastrointestinal system. And this is why this drug could not be patented. It is not, the formulation is not patented. You cannot patent a peptide. But what can be patented is the delivery system, and the dose. And that's what they've done. And I think because this is new territory for legislation and regulation, the FDA has kind of gone after the entire peptide world, peptides that people are using for other things, and they've been using them safely in, at varying doses for a very long time. But the FDA is kind of saying we're putting the kibosh on that. And so that's more of the political side of the peptide story. Then there's, all right, what does this drug do? And there are several of them. Again, they're a class of drug called GLP-1 agonists. And, I believe based on what I've seen just in the last year, there might be ones that have a safer profile than others or a more effective profile than others. But let's just talk about what these drugs do and then say, all right, well, what is my opinion on that? So you're going to be hearing a lot more about these drugs, and they're going to play a role because statistically, when you reduce obesity, you're going to reduce so many diseases.
Yes.
And this drug is going to be getting attribution for being the benefit of that. And they're going to kind of say this is preventing cancer and this is preventing joint degeneration, and there's less need for knee replacement surgeries and back surgeries. And I mean, they're just going to extrapolate so much out of this. Now, I also think we're jumping the gun a little bit because kind of like bariatric surgery, remember, bariatric surgery works until it doesn't. These medications, GLP-1 agonists, work until they don't. And we don't have any data, nothing, on anything after 2 years, and we probably never will. And what we know is that once you get off of the medication, we know that for the next 2 years, an overwhelming majority of the people reverse the benefits that they got when they were on it. And nobody really wants to be on a medication forever. And it's incredibly expensive. Will your health insurance pay for it for type 2 diabetes? Sure, maybe. Will they pay for it for you to lose 20 pounds? Certainly not. And if you want to pay for it yourself, you can. It's very expensive. So I'm framing it that way, and maybe my opinion about it is coming out. The side effects have to do with, well, cancer, gastroparesis, which is where, that's one of the benefits of this medication is that it slows down the digestion function of your body so that you feel less of a need to get hungry faster, right? You slow the emptying of food from your stomach, telling your brain, my stomach is still full, therefore I don't have to eat more. And so there are three mechanisms of action here. There's slowing the gastrointestinal system down. There's increasing insulin output. And there's a third part where it actually, and we don't know the mechanism here, it goes to the brain, to the part of the brain we call the hypothalamus, where you're told you're satiated. So it impacts all three of those. And what happens to a lot of people is they do what needs to be done, which is they don't have to use any willpower to have a caloric deficit. It kind of happens naturally, not naturally. It happens because the drug is doing those three things. So you eat less. And the problem with eating less when you're in a caloric deficit is you slow your resting metabolic rate. It's something I've been spending a lot of time understanding. You lower your resting metabolic rate to the point where you are now, just imagine your car gets 20 miles per gallon, right? But then all of a sudden you're driving through a desert and there's not a lot of gas stations and your car just magically gets 40 miles per gallon. Imagine your car could do that, right? If there's a deficit of gas, you could increase your gas mileage. Well, your body does that. If you're getting your stuff done for the day at 2,000 calories per day, and you're eating 2,300 calories per day, you're gaining weight. So if you go down to 1,500 calories per day, you're at a deficit. You will lose weight. But then your body says, I have a deficit of gas, so I have a deficit of energy. Well, now I'm going to run my day at 1,500 calories a day. And then you go down further. I'm going to go to 1,200, and so on and so forth. So that's exactly what's going to happen with bariatric surgery. That's what's going to happen with these medications. And then when you do get off of the medication, you're not at a deficit at 1,200 calories anymore. That's what your body has adapted to. So if you just go to 1,500 calories, which is still 800 calories less than what got you into trouble, you think you're doing a good thing. Meantime, you're at a surplus. And at 1,500 calories a day, you're gaining weight. And a lot of this has to do with how much body protein you lose from being in a calorie deficit. You'll lose muscle, right? If your body needs to to become more efficient, well, let's remove the tissue that makes you less efficient, and that's the more energy expensive tissue called muscle. And now we're setting ourselves up for an army of people by the millions. If we think osteoporosis is bad now, wait till you see what happens after a decade or two of these drugs taking hold. And now we're going to have other problems to deal with because we think we solved the other problems. It's a long answer.
No, that is very enlightening. And it makes complete sense. And so is there a concern also, and I'm assuming there is, for nutrient deficiency? Like, because we require a certain amount of nutrients, micronutrients, macronutrients, to be healthy in general, to keep the system running optimally. If our brain and our gut is saying to take in less, and we require less fuel because of this new drug, we still need a necessary amount of nutrients. Is there going to be nutrient deficiency with people taking this drug in some cases or many cases?
So I'm a clinician, and a clinician means patients come to me and I help them solve their problems. My recommendations that I make are based on my clinical experience, but it's also informed by data, which would be research that I would read. And I know there's just not a lot of information to answer that question in the data currently.
Sure.
I'm sure that'll change. So my clinical experience so far, and I've been seeing a lot of these patients, a lot of people who are taking this. I don't prescribe this. This is not my field, but I have a lot of patients who are concerned about the side effects or concerned about the protein loss, the muscle loss, and they come to me for solutions there because they want to do both. And that's fine. I don't have any problem with that. I think it's a good idea for a lot of people. But what I've seen on blood work, and we do thousands and thousands of sets of blood work each year, we're seeing that perhaps the gastric impact that these peptides have is because of the slowing of the digestive system. Perhaps the more complicated digestive processes like breaking down protein and fat in the small intestines, especially the upper part of the small intestines, the ability to extract micronutrients seems to be impacted by this. So we're seeing, for example, lower iron or ferritin levels, specifically ferritin when it comes to iron, not serum iron. Ferritin is a storage form of iron. It's what we use to track iron stores in the body. Now, the other one is vitamin B12, which is almost exclusively coming from animal products. Okay. And then there's also folate, which we're seeing a lot of deficiencies in. So just those three incredibly important micronutrients, and I mean incredibly important, right? Those three will dictate the quality of your red blood cells, which dictate your ability to deliver oxygen, which is, every cell in your body needs. Those are going to determine the quality of your nerve function and muscle activity, right? When vitamin B12 even approaches 400, which is not even laboratory low, you start to see neurological deficits. So we're seeing that in lab work in people in general, but we're also seeing it, I believe, to a greater extent in people who are taking those medications. And we're not checking all the micronutrients. I mean, I don't know. There's copper, zinc, all of these things. I think there's research that's going to be coming out. And if it currently exists, I'm not aware of it.
Sure. So are you concerned at all with, it's a lifetime use drug. If you come off of it, the benefits of it go away. With like, we're not teaching proper eating habits and lifestyle habits necessarily to patients taking the drug. So the drug, while it does fix weight loss or manage blood sugar, you're sort of missing the elephant in the room, eating correctly and living correctly. Do you think the doctors are educating patients on that also while giving them the drug, or is it a prescription pad and you're off to the races for lifetime use for Ozempic?
So just the way you frame that question, everyone listening is going to come up with the same exact answer. The cynic in all of us, the reason we're cynical about that particular question is because of what we see, right? So I'm going to say probably the majority of people are getting prescribed and moving on. But I do know there's a lot of doctors who understand these mechanisms, recognize that their patients are coming to them saying, hey, doc, I want this medication, but I don't want to be on it forever. How can you advise me? So let's just speak to that and assume the best for all of our, colleagues who are prescribing this medication. And if they're not providing this service, well, then shame on them, right? Because I can't imagine sitting down with a patient and not having the conversation. Let's just say the person is over 35 years old. Let's just take a female between the age of 35 and 50, and she's made a decision. I've tried everything and nothing seems to be working, or I've had varying results. I'm going to do this. Okay, fine. You made the decision. You're going to do this. Your doctor's going to prescribe it, but they're not going to have the conversation about how do you deal with muscle loss? What does muscle loss mean to you? How are you going to get off of this medication after a year goes by and you've had success? That conversation goes to maximizing protein, right? It goes to adding muscle, right? Or preventing the further loss of muscle. Increasing your resting metabolic rate. Well, knowing your resting metabolic rate to begin with, and not just using some online calculator, like really testing you personally, and come up with a protocol and a lifestyle that includes diet, exercise, sleep, all of the factors, so that when you do come off of it, you're already dialed into a lifestyle that's going to be predictive. But let's just say you made the decision, I'm going to do this. All right, fine. Wait a minute. Get 90 days of the lifestyle in first, and then move forward should you make that decision with your doctor. Because first of all, you give yourself a taste of what the lifestyle is going to need to be. And then the amount of time you spend on the medication or the dose might be less if you've already started the lifestyle that you're going to have to adopt when you get off. Now, if you say, well, I don't have to adopt any lifestyle, I just need to eat less. And there's good argument. Like, whatever my diet is, if I just get into energy balance, then nothing else matters. So I'm going to eat what I eat, but I'm going to be in energy balance. The problem is those are the people that reverse all of their results, entirely. But by looking at micro and macronutrients differently, and looking at how they satiate you, and looking at how they give you energy, right? Food is just that. It's the intake of energy. How your body uses that energy is different for different people, but also different for the different kinds of food that we eat. Knowing that, educating yourself about that, and feeling it personally, right? I took 1,000 people through a private Carnivore challenge in the month of January. January is Carnivore month, and World Carnivore Month, and I'm not advocating for any one particular diet, but I'm an advocate for trying a whole bunch of different things and having some fun with it, because eating meat for a month isn't hurting anyone. Matter of fact, it's helping tons and tons of people. But go just experiencing personally how diet impacts how you feel, how you function, is just a smart thing to do.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. So the education piece with this drug, and we're finish it here, I guess, is like, if it's a short-term use and they're getting the education and they're experimenting with new nutrition and lifestyle habits, it may not be a bad thing for short-term use. So, I'm hoping that that's the case. And if it is, then, I think people will be better off for it.
Well, look, Josh, I've been a client of yours. I've been a client of yours for quite some time, and
Yep.
the work that you do for, I kind of feel that there's 5 major assessments that people can do that are accessible and fairly inexpensive, that can be very predictive of your health span, your longevity, all the things that matter to us. And those assessments, one of the 5 includes muscle strength.
Yep.
And I know when I was at your shop, you have those hand grip, that progression of for grip strength. But there's other
Yeah.
ways of other exercises that you provided me that would
They're
improve
here.
my grip strength, like the dead hang and farmer's carry and things of that nature. There you go. But this is important because grip strength is more predictive of heart disease. Get this. Grip strength is more predictive of heart disease, and the research is absolutely clear, than systolic blood pressure. And systolic blood pressure is something that, rightfully so, doctors attack very aggressively. So your strength and assessing it, knowing where you're at now and where you want to be, is important for everyone. Everyone, and it's a simple assessment, right? You can get from Amazon, you can get a dynamometer that you can actually quantify your grip strength and watch it improve. Now, why is grip strength so predictive? Well, I think it's because you can't fake it. If we're talking about vitamin D being predictive of your health, well, you could just take a whole bunch of vitamin D supplements and change it real quick. And then, oh, look, my longevity is dramatically improved and my health span is going to. No, your longevity and your health span are not based on things you can change real quick. And again, Ozempic plays a role here. You can't fake grip strength. It's based on who you have been for the years leading up to the test that you do. And you can't make that, you can't prepare for it and say, I'm gonna have Josh check my grip strength next week and I'm gonna just take the next 7 days and really work on it. And no. So all of the assessments that I like to do are things that you really, hopefully, that are reflective of who you've been. And so the prescription that you give and the prescription that I give for diet, lifestyle, sleep, all the things, is something that is going to genuinely move you in the right direction.
And yeah, that's really well said. I know that the important things with progression take time. Like you had said, grip strength, you cannot just improve grip strength in 5 days, right? So it has to be a true lifestyle change long-term for people. You and I know that. I want to continue to talk about weight loss and obesity here a little bit. So I have some statistics. 74% of people right now are overweight or obese. 20% of people are taking 5 or more prescription drugs, and 70% are taking at least one. If you were nominated or voted in, let's say, to the director of National Institute of Health, what would be the first policy that you would implement to help turn around this nation's health?
I'd go straight to the kids. I'd go straight to the schools. That's ultimately where it has to change.
Yeah.
I remember when my children, so my children I have 2 in college and 1 is a junior in high school. And when they started to take health classes in middle school or high school, like the extent of it was, don't drink and drive and don't take fentanyl. I mean, whatever. It's like, and don't smoke. That constitutes health. And I was so encouraged. If I could just share a quick story, I went down to visit my son. He's a sophomore down at Florida State University, and I went down to visit him. I spoke at an event in Florida and then in Panama City, and I shot across the Panhandle and spent a couple of days Super Bowl weekend with my son and his frat buddies. And I got to tell you, I wasn't expecting a whole lot from the crowd. I believe me, my son, he makes me very, very proud. His refrigerator, I open it up and it's meat, eggs, fruit. And that's it. Meat, eggs, and fruit. And he works out, and you met George. You assessed George.
Yeah. George is quite the athlete. Yeah.
Yes. And he loves our work. He loves our business as far as health and fitness and all the things. So, but I wanted to know more about the other guys, right? So we went to a UVA Florida State basketball game, and there were a whole bunch of his roommates and frat brothers there. And then the next day we had Super Bowl Sunday, and then I went to the school. So I took a bunch of the guys out for dinner, and I can't tell you how happy I was. These kids were just so inquisitive and so curious, and my Instagram page kind of blows up. So everyone who knows George kind of finds out that his dad knows some stuff. So they had a lot of questions for me, just like you have. And man, I know when I was that age, I wasn't thinking at all about health and wellness and fitness. Now I cared about fitness because I wanted to look good on the beach, and I wanted to be involved in competitive, sports, whether it be pickup games on the basketball court or handball and on a flat wall in Queens. Whatever the case was, we're competitive as kids, and we want to be fit because we want to look good and win. But these kids are really listening to the podcasts. They're practicing what they preach. They all work out, and maybe their motivations are the same as what ours was, but they're clearly educated on this. So I want to capitalize on that and go to the younger groups, because they know what carbohydrates are. They know what fats are. They're not falling for the literal nonsense that is coming out of current state and federal government agencies about your plate or your pyramid or your all that stuff. They just know that if it came from the government, it's bullshit. And that's just the attitude they have. That's that's where we're at. So I would like to have the government reverse that negative brand equity that they have by really just saying, you know what, things are different. And and again, if you made me in charge, there are no food lobbyists that are allowed to come and talk to me, or cut me a check. Because who knows, you flash $5 million in front of my face, I might say some different stuff. I like to believe that I wouldn't. That I wouldn't, but you don't know until somebody comes up to you and says, here's a check.
Well, sure. And the power of lobbying it's everywhere in the government, right? You and I know that. That's a cool answer. I didn't know what you were going to say for that. I'm a huge fan of educating the youth. We actually in March are starting a homeschool. Well, we were actually contacted by a homeschool co-op to teach ages 3 to 6 our health and PE curriculum called Fit Kids, Fit Future. And so we're going to be teaching a group of 15 kids how to build the proper plate and, very, very basic, obviously, ages 3 to 6. But if you're going to turn the nation's health around, it needs to start at that age. And in 2013, I co-founded a company called Fit Kids, Fit Future. And my business partner and I got the health and PE curriculum into 75 schools. And we did many, many, many trainings with administrators, PE teachers, health teachers. And it was huge. Many of them are still using the health and PE assessments that we wrote. And so my business partner retired in 2019. And, now, I have access to that material and it's sort of tabled, but I have plans to do something with it. The material is timeless. I'm not sure what, but I truly believe in my heart that we're going to see a huge shift once we can reach more kids in the public school systems, in the inner cities. Maybe it'll take some lobbying power on our end to get this in there, with the government. I'm not sure. But that's where it needs to happen, because you and I know we can change adults' health. We do it for a living. It's harder, right? As time goes on, there's habits, there's different, there's just a whole mindset piece there too. But kids, if they know that eating meat and fruit and vegetables, and they just know some of the concepts, which are very basic concepts from a very young age, they just have it built into them. And so, yeah, that's cool. So maybe we're team up at some point with that.
For sure. And again, our mind can go to I'm not by nature a cynical person in any way, but I know what's currently happening is the opposite, right? Yeah. Not just food pyramid and the plate and all that stuff, but even things like children are just being, their fear is being instilled in them, and they actually believe that the planet is going to come to an end in their lifetime before they ever get to enjoy life. And it's coming to an end because, I don't know, cows are farting, or like this really poor understanding of what food is and where it comes from, and how it impacts us as a community, as a nation, as a planet. Everything is really currently working against us in our message and the message that they're currently receiving. Every generation has different motivations. So, and you know exactly what I mean. Like, for me personally, I'm 54 years old. My number one fitness goal every workout is don't get hurt. That was never the case 10, 15, 20, 25 years ago. That's my number one goal. I have other goals, but number one, don't get hurt. So my motivations are different. Longevity and health span is now in my lexicon. Now my daughter, if I could, again, share another personal story, she's 21 years old, senior in college. She's actually working for a healthcare company in Connecticut as an internship, doing their social media. And she's learning a lot, and she's motivated by vanity, right? Like, she's beautiful and wants to stay beautiful and wants to stay young. So like George wants to be strong and muscular, and Zoe wants to be, beautiful, right? So this is somebody who is enamored a little bit with the whole vegan, vegetarian lifestyle. And she sends me a picture of her cooking liver. And so we have a family chat. So she sends out the liver, and she's like, "Oh, it was actually pretty good." And I'm like, is it because she's listening to me, or is something else? So she came home from college and for the weekend, and she said, "Well, I saw this TikTok video, and if you eat liver, like this girl, she did like a liver challenge, and she ate liver for X number of days, and her skin was just glowing." So great, whatever the motivation is, like her motivation is vanity. George's motivation is strength and muscularity. And they're young. And then you have kids, they have different motivations. They just, they're in school, they learn what they're taught. And then you have people who are just getting their families started. Maybe they're in their late 20s and early 30s. They want to have healthy babies, right? They're not really thinking about themselves. They still treat themselves like they're in their 20s. So they think about their children and how do we make them healthy. And then you go into, all right, the empty nesters, like my kids are, they're growing up, and I don't have to, pay attention to all their stuff. I can focus back on myself and my wife. And then we start doing things differently for ourselves. So I just think when it comes to health, and look at the motivations that people have, look at the way in which you can get into their life and what's important to them, and then come up with strategies for that. Because really,
That's
ultimately, we're creating habits, right?
Yeah, for sure. That's excellent. That is excellent. Native Path has been a podcast sponsor of ours since day one, and it's because our clients feel amazing using their supplements. While a lot of products on the market today contain useless fillers and incorrect dosages, Native Path holds to a higher standard. Native Path's ingredients are sourced from only the highest quality, properly combined nutrients, all while being offered at competitive prices. Use code COMO15, that's COMO 15 at checkout, and receive 15% off each order. Lombardi Chiropractic has been Co-Movement's trusted chiropractor for the last 14 years. They have worked with hundreds of our clients, and I can confidently say they have the most knowledgeable and holistic approach to care that I have ever seen. Whether you suffer from migraines, low energy, nagging pain, or just simply want to improve your overall health, I highly recommend contacting the team at Lombardi Chiropractic. Mention the Co-Movement Gym podcast and receive 50% off your initial consultation and x-rays. Here at Co-Movement, we put a lot of energy into helping you become happy, healthy, and strong. But we're not the only ones needing a good workout. That's why a dog's day out is the best place in Central New York for your pet to spend their day. Your dog will be as happy and healthy as you when you let them run, play, and socialize instead of just sitting on the couch waiting for you to come home. Give your dog the active day out that they deserve. Mention this podcast and get a free day of Doggy Daycare at a dog's day out. Let's bounce now to depression drugs. I see many clients on and off throughout the years that have taken one or more of these drugs. I'm not judging them by any means, but we do get a client profile sheet, so we get to see, as do you. And so, with your clients, you get to see the background. And so these drugs, like, what kind of effect do they have on weight loss? I'm interested in this. I don't know the answer to this at all. Is there an effect on weight loss? Does it disrupt metabolic function? Do they not? I'm not sure.
So, yes, let's just keep it very simple.
Mm-hmm.
These medications alter what's called neurotransmitter activity. So people who have experience with depression might know the term serotonin, because the medications are selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, which means serotonin stays in the brain in its active form longer. Again, to keep it very simple. People with ADHD who take ADHD medications have heard the word dopamine, because the medications for that are dopamine reuptake inhibitors. And then the false assumption is, well, I must have a chemical imbalance and these medications restore natural balance. Yeah, there's no evidence for that. But there is evidence that if you take medications that alter these neurotransmitters, it'll make you feel differently. And some of them are very, very helpful to people. Caffeine is a dopamine reuptake inhibitor. And a lot of people with ADHD tend to be coffee junkies because it kind of allows them to focus. Again, I'm not promoting self-medicating in any way, but that's just like a mild form. Now, a very severe, dangerous form is cocaine. That kind of does the same thing, but in a very dangerous way, in a very addictive way. All right, with that being said, in order to digest food and to have all of the activities of the gut, you need all those same neurotransmitters. You need dopamine, serotonin, epinephrine. They're all, matter of fact, 97% of the neurotransmitters in your body are in your gut. So does it make sense that it can impact the concentration of these things throughout the body, not just the brain? Sure. There's no reason to not think that. But also it goes to, what are your motivations when you're depressed? What are your motivations when you have anxiety? And if you what are your motivations when you have attention? Let's say you're trying to focus on something. How do I get more dopamine? You know what I mean? Like you could drink coffee, or you can eat ice cream, right? Food is very rewarding. Dopamine is a reward neurotransmitter. You can self-medicate with comfort foods. So people who take
Mm-hmm.
ADHD medication actually lose weight. It's not a weight loss drug. It's not a weight loss drug. And then there are medications that can cause you to gain weight, some of the antidepressants or anti-anxiety drugs. What's interesting in the field of depression and anxiety, one thing we know is that depression and anxiety live in a part of the brain. They're not right next to each other. It's the same part of the brain. So we always say depression and anxiety, depression and anxiety. But the medications that are, so if you Google the inflammatory model of depression and anxiety, you're going to see a whole bunch of information come up. And a lot of psychiatrists found that anti-inflammatory medications dramatically improve depression and anxiety.
Wow.
So people who are resistant to the traditional psychiatric medications actually do well with anti-inflammatory medications. But now, all right, so in our world, I don't prescribe medication, but I know how to affect inflammation in the body through diet, lifestyle, even nutritional supplements that are pretty dramatic. So I've had success along those lines. And then the third category of this story has to do with micronutrients. Let's just put it this way. If you are, insufficient, not deficient, just insufficient in certain micronutrients like vitamin B12, like iron or ferritin. You need ferritin not only to make healthy red blood cells that can effectively deliver oxygen to the most oxygen sensitive organ in the human body, the brain, but you need iron to actually make neurotransmitters. So if your ferritin is low and you have no idea, well, you could take all the medication you want. You're not delivering oxygen efficiently to your brain, which is the biggest problem. And then you're inefficiently producing these neurotransmitters that might be out of balance, so to speak. So addressing simple things like that, and vitamin B12 and folate, these are incredibly important for brain function. How do you not do a basic blood panel just to, all right, let me just take care of the low-hanging fruit. Oh my God, my ferritin is 30. It should be 75 to 100. Let's straighten that out, right? Before we start popping pills. And again, I don't say that to be, I don't use the term popping pills, that people who are taking these medications are just willy-nilly popping pills.
Sure.
I say that more to be facetious to the ones prescribing it, because are you really checking important blood markers for that basic function? And I know the answer is no, because I had worked for a couple of years in a psychiatric an office on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. Psychiatrists recognized the value of wellness and brought me in one day a week for a couple of years, where I worked with patients and we ran the panels and we corrected those things. And there was no shortage of people who were able to get off of medications. So again, there's different reasons to take medication. We're not saying that just getting your B12 and iron are what it takes to cure depression and anxiety. But if you have depression and anxiety, well, check those things.
Yeah, that's, and I couldn't agree more. It may sound simple for people listening, but getting these levels checked out and in balance first, I think there would be a large percentage of people that would see a dramatic improvement in obviously many different underlying symptoms, whether it's depression or whatnot. But those links that you mentioned with the inflammation and folate and all of that, B12 with depression and all, get those in check first, and then medication, is needed in some cases. But we're ignoring again, I think, the elephant in the room in many cases. Let's jump now, because you mentioned caffeine. Let's talk about Adderall. and
Mm-hmm.
amphetamines. Students and adults are taking Adderall like candy. It's almost just like a widely accepted, almost like Tylenol type, acceptance level right now for focus and staying awake and working long hours. Like, is there any side effects with that? It is like, I know it's effective and it works really well according to people I've talked to. But is there negative consequences and side effects to taking Adderall and stimulants?
Oh yeah, I mean, of course, these are pseudoamphetamines. There's a reason why we don't take amphetamines, right? So, a pseudoamphetamine means like it's like a less of an amphetamine. Um, I mentioned cocaine, and you can add crystal meth, and then like those are dangerous, addictive, deadly drugs. So
Mm-hmm.
what do? We make drugs that are just kind of less versions of those things. And kids certainly know this. When it comes to Ritalin, they'll they'll chop it up and snort it, right?
Yep.
Why? Because it does for them what cocaine would do. And again, it's not, that's just not my opinion. That's just what it is. So what are
Mm-hmm.
the side effects? You want a list of side effects, just look on the website for the drug. I mean, those are the side effects, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yes, appetite changes, sexual dysfunction, all kinds of things that are, you mess with the brain. What is the central processing unit of the entire body, right? So you're going to impact every system in the body in one way or another. Whether it's measurable or not is, that's not for me to say. But you are impacting things, and it's not a drug if it doesn't have side effects. And the people who come to you for your service, and the people who come to me for my service, are people who they already kind of know intuitively that they need to move away from that stuff. So they're
Mm-hmm.
already in that process. It's not like, not, I will tell you that out of 1,000 of my patients, 999 of them don't smoke cigarettes. Because
Mm-hmm.
why would you come to me if you're smoking cigarettes? Like, if you haven't taken care of that, doing the things I'm going to ask you to do. I mean, I ask my patients, depending on their history and their findings, to go gluten free. Like, does
Mm-hmm.
somebody who smokes cigarettes really care about going gluten free? Probably not. Now, I'm
Yeah,
not trying to be disparaging to people who smoke. They just don't find their way to me, right?
sure.
Unless they heard that I can help you quit smoking or something like that. So people are looking to get off these medications, or have already gotten off of them, or are trying to avoid them for the most part. That's what I see.
Mm-hmm.
And same with you. I mean, I know what you teach, and what you teach is, for people to use their body in a way they weren't aware that that was even possible. And their motivations are far different. They tend to probably not be obese. Now, I'm
Mm-hmm.
not saying you don't have obese clients. You do. I know you do. But these are people who've made the mental shift already,
Yep.
um, to work with you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good insight about that. And I think falls into probably a similar insight, I guess, or a perspective in terms of like what you had mentioned with the depression drugs. Like, if they get other things in order, that maybe Adderall isn't needed, like proper sleep habits, whether it's a meditation practice and, proper food intake and exercise. And, it's, yeah, we're sort of speaking the same language here, but these are reoccurring things that I've seen throughout years that is sort of on my mind. Because a lot of times we'll see individuals that have a list of a lot of these things I'm bringing up today,
Mm-hmm.
but yet they want to see results, whether it's weight loss, energy, strength, this and that.
Yeah.
But in my mind, and I don't say this because I'm not a doctor, I'm not qualified to say this, but like in my mind, it's almost like there is a barricade Like, you're on these prescriptions that are preventing possibly X, Y, and Z results. And so while our job is to teach you how to eat healthier, live healthier, move better, I think that there needs to be at some point a transition away from some of these prescriptions to see the true results. And again, I could never make that recommendation or even mention it. But I get frustrated with the general doctors that probably won't ever mention getting off something like that. If Susie goes into the doctor and says, hey, I've been exercising for 6 months, I'm eating really clean now, my energy's changed, I just really have a, optimistic outlook on life, this and that. Will the doctors even mention, like, hey, maybe we should reduce your depression drug or remove it? I don't know if they're having those conversations. I have no idea.
So if I could, and you froze up on me there. I don't know if you're still talking, Josh. I apologize if I just jump in here, but if I can, I'd like to take a little bit of time on this to elaborate on what you just said, because it's so important. The focus of what I'm doing right now to educate people, social media is just this incredible place to educate people all over the world. And I've learned that, since I have an audience, I have a responsibility. And obviously I can't treat the world as my patients. My social media presence is just a place to just hear what I'm thinking and doing. And there's value there. And when it comes to issues of lifestyle, all right, if you hear something, a lifestyle change that appears, that's recommended from an influencer, all right, try it out. I mean, what's going to happen if you change your diet for 4 to 6 weeks? Like, nothing. And if the diet you change to for 4 to 6 weeks is not working for you, you're not going to stay on it, right? So I think people need to stop feeling like their doctor has the education to restore their health. Your doctors don't. They don't. And one thing I've learned over the last 25 years is how capable people are of learning to become an expert in themselves. I read blood work a lot. And when I have a one-on-one with my patients regarding their blood work, I promise you, they come out of that call not thinking like, the markers on a blood test are like this black box of information that only doctors have. And they know about me, and they'll tell me what to do and do this and take that. And that's what blood work reading has become, right? You go to the doctor and, all right, you sit down here, I got your results. All right, everything's fine. You got to do this and you got to take that, and I'll see you in 6 months. And that's nonsense. It's such an opportunity to teach people, because people are smart. And you can teach people without teaching them to become a doctor. You can teach them to become an expert in themselves and what they need to do to feel good, look good, and express health and longevity. And the way I do that, I always say that here's what you can do. Get a baseline assessment of your health. Know where you're at right now, and set goals for where you want to be. And I have 5 categories. Your blood chemistry is super important. I do a lot of work now with VO2 max and resting metabolic rate, measuring that. Muscle strength, right? What is your ability to do a 5-rep maximum in a push, pull, and a hip hinge type of an activity? What's your body composition? Body fat, subcutaneous body fat, visceral body fat, and lean muscle mass. I want to know all of those factors. And then finally is what is the range of motion and flexibility of your joints? When you worked with me, my left knee was severely limited, and it's dramatically improved because of the work that I've done. But I lost that range of motion because of injury and just not understanding. So those are the 5 categories, and they can be measured. Doing a functional movement screen, doing a muscle strength test, whether it be, what is your 5-rep max or just a grip strength? What is your VO2 max and resting metabolic rate? What does your blood chemistry look like? And what is your body composition? Wow, those 5 things, you fix those or improve those, or I pay attention to those in your life, you're going to avoid 95% of the diseases and the medications that you're asking questions about, right? So that's my approach. And I teach people to take control of their health, because if you put your health in the hands of a medical doctor who's trained to treat and manage disease, end of story. I mean, come on. The last 4 years especially has told us they're not interested in having a sit-down conversation with you about health and wellness and all the things that we're talking about here. Not because they're stupid. They're super smart. They recognize people are sick. And the pandemic revealed that they need to be in crisis management, and that's what they're spending their time doing. And God bless them. We need crisis management in this world. I don't want an expert in crisis management telling me how to exercise and how to eat, because they don't know. They're not taught that in medical school. Stop thinking your medical doctor knows what to tell you. They can tell you what they tell my kids. Don't drink and drive, don't smoke, don't do drugs, and, eat right and exercise. That's it. That's it. Stop pretending you're getting something else, because you're not. You're not. You need to go to people like us who have expertise and experience in bringing people through a progression to change their lives and to take ownership of their lives. If I could share, Josh, and I'm sorry if I'm being a little too verbose, but a mentor of mine from a dozen years ago, just a businessman of the highest integrity, somebody with the greatest character I've ever met, revealed that he had stage 4 pancreatic cancer, and he was journaling on video his process through that. And when I saw what he was willing to do after he got diagnosed with a terminal disease, I'm like, and he's doing it all, and he's a remarkable, inspiring person. Why are we waiting till we get to have that mental shift to say, because he's not doing standard of care. He's not doing standard of care. And there's research on people who are diagnosed with cancer who have this somebody wanted to do a research study on people who experience spontaneous remissions. I can't remember the name of the book, but spontaneous remissions are much more likely to happen to people who have complete ownership of their condition. They're not doctors. They don't become doctors. They're just like, I'm going to become an expert in myself. I'm taking control. Nobody's making decisions for me. And standard of care is out the window, because when you're stage 4 anything, standard of care is not taking you anywhere. So those people who make that mental shift, why can't they make that mental shift when they're well, before they have this terminal disease? And that's a psychological answer I don't have. But I do my best to get people to become experts in themselves when they're well. So God forbid they do have a crisis like that. They're much more likely to make better decisions for themselves that would give them the feeling of, I'm empowered. I'm an expert in myself. I know what my body needs. The doctor is going to do their thing. They do doctor things that I don't know about, and they should do that. But I'm in control of my fitness. I'm in control of my diet. I'm in control of my sleep. No one's going to help me with that. And that's really the focus of my entire career right now, is to empower people to do the things that allow them to take control of their lives.
We have the same thing here. Clients will wait, they're 20 pounds overweight, 40 pounds overweight, 60 pounds, and now their back hurts, their knee hurts, and now they're 70 pounds overweight, and then they're depressed, and then they come in. And so, it's not that we can't help them. We do every day, every week. We have a great staff here that does that. But why not, when you're feeling good and looking good, like, why don't you just adopt the proper habits and continue to feel great all the time? I don't have the answer to that. I think it's very unique for everyone. But one thing I tell people, and you really went on a very good rant, with the medical system there, is look at your doctor, like, physically. And is that someone you want to emulate at any level? Now, I'm not saying they need to be a bodybuilder or some super triathlete or anything like that. But like just their posture and their, the clarity in their eyes and like their build, like, do they look vibrant and healthy? Is that someone that you're taking advice from? Is that someone that you want to emulate? And I'd say, I don't know, 80 to 90% of the cases, the answer to that would be no. And so, like, if I'm going to take advice from someone in regards to, let's say, finance, and I know their financial issues, I'm done. I just shut off. There's no more of me absorbing anything that you say, and it's futile. And so the same thing goes with health and fitness. Imagine if your personal trainer had this big beer gut and was like walking around giving you advice on all the things that worked for him. It's bullshit, And so I think there's a lot to be said about walking the walk humbly, and let people learn from the actions of people living it. And so we'll get a long ways with that. Let's move on now. I want to talk, we're in the middle of winter here in upstate New York. Tons of people are sick. They're blaming it on the cold, which I have a hard time believing. But let's talk about sugar consumption and the immune system. What kind of effect does excess consumption of sugar have on someone's immune system?
Okay, so excess sugar is the word there, right? And let's define what excess means. So sugar is a fuel, right? Just like protein can be a fuel, fat can be a fuel, and sugar can be literal sugar like candy, or we could be talking about the carbohydrate content of the food we're eating. So let's just say, a very carbohydrate heavy food is white rice or a white potato, pasta, bread, etc. So sugar is absolutely necessary for human life. If you have type 1 diabetes, you realize if you can't put sugar into your cells, you die. So sugar is so incredibly important to you functioning. It's so important you don't ever have to eat it. Sugar is so important that you will manufacture exactly what you need all the time. If you don't have type 1 diabetes and autoimmune disease, and you choose to never, let's just say 100% of your diet for a year is protein and fat. And there are people on the planet who've had to do this, right? We call them the Inuit, right? If you live in the Arctic Circle, you're eating seals and caribou, right? It's protein and fat, and that's it. There's no veg, for at least 6 months, you're not going to see an edible plant anywhere. And if you check that person's blood, they have a teaspoon of sugar in their 5 liters of blood, meaning 80 milligrams per deciliter of glucose, because they have to have it, and they make it. And then if you take someone living here in the New York City tri-state area, and you take a 13-year-old kid and you give them a big giant chocolate cake with 80 teaspoons of sugar in that helping, within 90 minutes, they too have 80 milligrams per deciliter of glucose in their blood. 1 teaspoon in their 5 liters of blood. Now, they had to do backflips in order to remove those other 79 teaspoons of sugar that was in the chocolate cake. And the Inuit in the Arctic Circle, they have to kind of do backflips to manufacture the 1 teaspoon that they need. But it's a lot harder to pull 80, teaspoons of sugar out of your blood than it is to add 1 teaspoon into your blood. So right there, we're talking about excess. What do we do with the excess? Well, we have to send it off somewhere, because sugar is absolutely toxic, right? Because type 2 diabetes is that, it's the devastating effects that sugar has on every system in your body, right? And that's going, sugar is inflammatory. Excess sugar in your bloodstream is inflammatory. Inflammation means your immune system has to be engaged in order to not have that kill you, right? So when you engage your immune system, you're saying to your immune system, not only do you have to deal with viruses and parasites and bacteria and all that stuff, you got to deal with the inflammation associated with excess sugar in the system. Just an example of that, just think about your joints for a second. If you have excess sugar in your blood, that is because you're unable to get rid of it. I mentioned the 13-year-old kid because they're very insulin sensitive, but we get older, we all of us become more insulin resistant. Resistant means we're having a hard time pushing the sugar into our cells to get it out of the bloodstream where it's dangerous. So sugar pulls with it water. So when sugar leaves the capillaries, when it leaves the bloodstream, and it wants to get into cells, let's just say in your joints and your tendons and your ligaments and in your disc tissue and all of that stuff, your joints. Just take the knee, for example. All of the cells there in your knee joint need fuel. But now if they're insulin resistant, the fuel leaves the capillary and it's waiting to enter into the cells around the joint. But the cells are resistant. So the sugar kind of sits in this space outside the blood vessel and outside of the joint cell. Well, sugar is going to bring water with it. So now you have an inflamed joint that has excess fluid around it, making it stiffer. That sugar is sticky, right? Just put your elbow on your counter that has sugar on it and you'll see how sticky sugar is. Well, the way we measure the stickiness of sugar is how much protein in our body is sugar sticking to. We measure this with hemoglobin A1C. It's a tracker of diabetes. It's the A1C position of the hemoglobin molecule that we said, okay, let's just look at that. How much sugar is it? That renders the hemoglobin in the red blood cell useless. So that's important. So we, come up with a number. If it's 6.5 or more, you have diabetes. 6.5%, you have diabetes. Well, sugar doesn't just attach to that protein, it attaches to all proteins. So if the sugar is attaching to the collagen proteins and attaching to the all the proteins associated with that joint, well, now the immune system has to come in and start attacking and repairing. And that's diverting all kinds of resources to that process. This results in joint degeneration because your immune system is attacking you. It's attacking your joints. You kind of create this autoimmune-like condition because you have excess sugar in the system. Autoimmunity means your immune system is not responding properly to the environment that it's in, or it's being overwhelmed and therefore not effectively doing what it should be doing. I know that can be a little complicated. If you're listening to this, just replay it. It's understandable. It's understandable. Just follow the logic. Sugar brings with it water. It provides insulin resistance, which prevents the sugar from entering into the cells that could use the sugar. Because the sugar is sitting around in the extracellular space, it's attaching to protein, rendering that protein dysfunctional. The immune system has to go in and deal with that. And this is degenerative joint disease. I mean, Chiropractors, we take x-rays of people all the time. And I can tell you from 1996 when I graduated, or 1993 when I started my education, 1992 to now, degenerative changes seen on x-rays are happening younger and younger, and it's more and more severe. And in my opinion, this is the mechanism.
Yeah. Wow. So sugar is okay. That was very, very insightful. So sugar then is diverting the immune system to other roles, to not do its primary role. And you mentioned a bunch of that when you just explained that. That's wow. So that's why maybe the holiday season, when everyone's, Thanksgiving, Christmas, parties, sugar, 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 they're getting sicker. And I knew there was a connection there. I didn't know what it was. So that was very, very well put. I hope people really, really listen to that. And then also on top of that,
Now,
you're not
let me
getting.
just quickly, I don't want to
Mhm.
oversimplify because there's vitamin D issues and there's other things going on. So, but that mechanism is something that I know exists and no one's talking about. But there are other mechanisms like micronutrients, vitamin D, and things like that that are contributing as well.
Yeah. And I was going to say at the same time, we're consuming all of that sugar. It's lack of sunlight, like you had said,
Mhm.
vitamin D, lack of fresh air because we're inside more and it's cold depending on where you live. So no, it's definitely a combination of things. A little bit of apple pie or pumpkin pie on Thanksgiving isn't going to necessarily make you sick. But 6 weeks of that and, no exercise, no fresh air and no sunlight, that might do it.
Josh, we do Thanksgiving at my house and I have
Yeah.
a big family. My immediate family in my town alone is 25 people. So we have it at my house, and I always tell my patients, and I tell myself, Thanksgiving is Thursday. It's not Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And every one of those people is leaving with containers because I don't want leftovers. I'm not
Yep.
interested in leftovers. I'll enjoy Thanksgiving Day, but not Thanksgiving week.
Yep. 100. I'm with you on that, buddy. All right. So
Mhm.
last big topic. We're running a little over on time. Is that okay if we go a little
Yeah,
longer?
for sure.
Okay. Let's talk about alcohol. So alcohol consumption's alive and well. And it's not uncommon to see adults drinking 2 to 4 drinks a night for 5 to 7 nights a week. It's very, very common, at least what I'm seeing. And so what effects does alcohol have on the microbiome? I know that this could be a whole podcast in and of itself, but let's break it down really
You
simple.
froze
What
up on me,
effects does
Josh.
alcohol have on the microbiome?
Oh, okay. Perfect. I think I got it. So, sorry, there was just a little delay there so the question is the effects of alcohol on the microbiome and, the amount that you said people will drink. I mean, so I love my whiskey. I've become a fan of bourbon, and I love bourbon. Um, I can tell you right now, for my entire life, and certainly into the future, I will never come home from the office, pour myself a drink. It's just never going to happen. I don't drink in my house. Um, I only drink socially. And, if I'm going out to dinner, if I'm going to meet some people at the hotel and the bar when I'm away speaking, I'll have a drink. And I typically like to order whiskey or bourbon, and I might have one or two. And that might happen. I might go 3 months without it happening, and I might do
Mhm.
it a couple of times in 1 month. So this idea of drinking alcohol every day, I mean, that's a problem. Drinking alcohol to relax, that's a problem. To feel better, to deal with anxiety, to help you sleep, like using alcohol as medication, you have a problem. Okay, so let's just make that clear. Alcohol is a sugar. Alcohol is a sugar, and the body will process it accordingly. And is a sugar that goes right into the portal circulation to your liver and does all the things that it does to the liver and affects all the detoxification pathways. And, it's just the ways in which alcohol can hurt you are far too numerous to talk about here. And I believe, as far as the microbiome goes, I don't know specifically what it's going to do, but I can't imagine those little bacteria want to be drinking bourbon. So I would imagine it's probably not a good thing for your microbiome. The bacteria in your gut would like to ferment amino acids in your protein. They would like to help you break down your fats. And of course, they would like to ferment your vegetable and fruit fibers. That's what makes bacteria happy. And happy bacteria is a happy gut. Alcohol will definitely, again, without having clear data that I could refer to right now, just understanding physiology, I can tell you it's probably not good.
What for the guys listening, what effect does alcohol have on testosterone?
So again, it is a sugar, and processing sugar and carbohydrates. Well, let's put it this way: the number one cause of low testosterone for Americans in particular is insulin resistance. Number one cause, and all of the devastating effects that insulin resistance has on the body. There are certain pathways where you can convert some of your testosterone into estrogen, create an imbalance in the estrogen to testosterone ratio. Alcohol will certainly contribute to liver dysfunction, which you need in order to have normal blood sugar responses. People who tend to have problems with alcohol tend to have problems with food. And therefore, I believe it's the same mechanism as insulin resistance. If you were not drinking alcohol, it's going to lower your free testosterone. It's going to lower, increase the binding globulin or protein that renders your testosterone useless. And it's going to contribute to what's called aromatization, where you convert testosterone into estrogen. Typically happens in belly fat, and belly fat is visceral fat, and visceral fat is fat surrounding your organs. And the best way to get fat surrounding your organs is to drink alcohol, right? We call that fatty liver. That's what alcohol does, raises your liver enzymes on a blood test. And you develop this visceral fat, which is going to then result in elevated estrogen, decreased testosterone, decreased free testosterone, elevated binding globulin, and again, devastating effects.
All right, so let's talk about your client process here to finish up. So a client decides to reach out to you and work with you. They've read your website, which is phenomenal. We'll put the link in the description of the show. What does the first step look like? They reach out to you, and then what happens?
So if they reach out to me, my as you could imagine, time is a commodity. I have a team that will conduct a conversation with the client and say, all right, first of all, am I the right person for you? I might be, I might not be, and my team knows how to ask the right questions. If we determine that I'm the right person for you, you get on a call with me. And in that call, I'm going to verify that I'm going to hear your story. I'm going to say, well, here's where my brain is going. Here's what I'd like to do moving forward. The next step is probably going to be to do some assessment or testing. And that's where we leave it, because I don't know what you need until I know what you need. And we have to go through that process. So contacting my office, having a consultation first with a team member, they'll schedule you and let you know what all that looks like to get on a call with me. Typically, that first call is a phone call, and then if we're going to move forward, we'll do virtual calls like this one, or we'll have some other way of working together. Now, I do have offices that I work with across the country, as far as people who utilize my services and my systems. And if I can't help you one-on-one, perhaps one of our offices around the country can be a place that you could go to and engage with Dr. Steven G's products and services.
Yeah, that's what we do here. We send a lot of people to Lombardi Chiropractic,
Yep.
not just for chiropractic services, but also he's partnered with you and, the lab work and supplements and readings and all of that. And so first off, I just want to say for everyone listening, we've had many clients go through that process with Lombardi Chiropractic and you, and phenomenal difference. Like, I wish I could record some of these. I probably could actually, just the feedback and how people feel. And a lot of times very, very basic stuff, but like feedback in terms of like, I cannot believe I felt that bad for that long. And now I had no idea how it felt to feel as good as I do now. Like things like that. It sounds cliche, but I'm not making it up. Like that's exactly what they say. So
by the way,
credit
Josh,
to you.
If I can, and thank you for that, because I a lot of times people feel so bad for so long, they think their problem must be incredibly complicated.
Yeah.
And I find, and the reason why I work, especially with chiropractic offices across the country, is because chiropractors are very concerned with how well people live, and they're experts at dealing with structural health, which is incredibly important. And then recognizing that their patients, especially over the last 10, 15, 20 years, they've declined. The American population has declined in metabolic health so dramatically that ignoring metabolic health is just, it's unacceptable, and there's nobody else. So what we do is we say, okay, let's remove structural interference, let's remove biochemical interference at the same time and get these great results. And we're saving people from having to go to some functional medicine person down the street to handle things that are not necessarily that complicated, because the low-hanging fruit, if you address that first, you can solve, in my opinion, over 80% of the most common problems that present to a functional medicine expert.
Yeah, absolutely. Last question. I'm really curious. You get people, they have blood work done. You give them recommendations with supplements, lifestyle, nutrition, whatever it is. It's obviously different for everyone. What do you think is the top thing that you have seen people change and fix to make them feel significantly better? And I don't mean taking a supplement, like lifestyle, like what is it? Like, and be specific.
Okay, so you heard me say that the things in assessments that matter the most are the things you can't turn around like this. But people do, when they decide to make a change, I always say this, you should know within 4 weeks that you're clearly headed in the right direction, meaning the body starts to heal, and it does so quickly. So I always say that there's nothing that gives you more bang for your buck when it comes to your health, wellness, and longevity than physical fitness. There's nothing that even comes close. And that's why I almost exclusively talk about food. Not because I think food is as powerful as fitness, but because the food you eat will determine the energy you have, will determine your susceptibility to injury, will determine the motivation you wake up with to do the exercises that you need to do. So that, right? It's kind of like you have a Formula One vehicle, and the most important thing that Formula One vehicle can do is drive fast, and the fuel you put into it is garbage, right? So we want your ability to do the physical things that improve your health, and the quickest. Now, physical fitness takes time. You're not going to get dramatic changes in 4 weeks, especially if you're 54 years old. But boy, can your diet change the way you feel. And it's truly remarkable. And it, of course, changes the blood chemistry that we're measuring, making sure you have all the right micronutrients and all of the right hormonal levels and all of the right blood sugar regulation that you would need in order to benefit long term. But in the short term, in that first, initial, again, I say 4 weeks, but 4, 8, 12 weeks, you can do some amazing things with diet and nutrition. So that's where I go.
Yeah, you cannot, for people listening, you cannot out exercise a shitty diet. It's just, I don't care. Like, you go out Friday night, you eat a whole pizza and 6 beers, and you think you're going to go to CrossFit class on Saturday morning and fix that. It's 100% false. And the racing, example that you gave with the car, it's exactly that. Like, you have a vehicle that can go fast, but if it has bad gas in it, I don't care what kind of tires you have, the engine, the horsepower, none of it matters. And you really said something also right there, Dr. G, that was interesting. Good food makes you motivated, and it gives you like some oomph to get out of bed and want to go do physical exercise, that you're not like dragging your ass to the gym. If you're dragging your ass to the gym every day or every other day, and it's really, really hard, maybe, I don't know, maybe that's not the place you need to be, and you need to be in the kitchen cooking whole food and eating whole food and having, positive conversation with your family. And then all of that starts to build momentum. And then you wake up on Saturday morning and you say, look, I want to go for a 15-mile bike ride. And that's like more of the frosting on the cake.
Absolutely. We there's things we could talk about, like you mentioned, family time, and that goes to mental health and emotional health, and then we can talk about sleep and how I don't care how good your diet is, if you have sleep pathology, right, sleep apnea or something like that, you're going to be insulin resistant. You're going to be producing too much cortisol. You're going to have food cravings you can't control. So there is a bigger, wider conversation to have with people, but I think we nailed on the things. I think we hit on the things that are most impactful, the quickest. And if you do have more complicated challenges associated with mental, emotional health or sleep or those types of things, reach out, to us, and we'll find you the resources to improve those things.
For sure. All right. Well, Dr. G, thank you. I was really looking forward to this conversation. I'm going to definitely have you back on again, 6 months to a year. I have a whole new list of questions. I love your Instagram channel. You have like almost 800,000 followers. So I'm a big, big fan. So for people listening, how can they learn more about you and what you're doing? Can you give your website and the Instagram handle?
So everything for me, social media and website wise, is Dr. Steven G, right? So DrSteveng. So Instagram at Dr. Steven G, X.com or Twitter at Dr. Steven G, LinkedIn at Dr. Steven G, Facebook at Dr. Steven G. And then my website is drsteveng.com, spelled the same way. So that's where you find me. That's where all my resources are. And I'm having a hell of a lot of fun. And on YouTube, that's my new thing, and kind of, it's not a podcast, but I'm doing 8 to 12 minute videos, doing deeper dives into the topics that I discuss on Instagram in 90 seconds or less. So that's where you could find me.
Awesome. And we'll connect all those links in the show descriptions and tag on Instagram. So awesome. All right, Dr. G, I'm sure I'll see you soon, and we're staying in touch.
Yes. Thank you. Great time.
If you enjoyed this episode, please consider supporting our sponsors, Native Path Supplements, Lombardi Chiropractic, and A Dog's Day Out Doggy Daycare. They help us bring you 2 new episodes each month and have a special discount just for our listeners. See the show notes for more details. Thank you, and see you next time on the Co-Movement Gym podcast.